Hola, mi amigos y amigas. I am here today with another reading. Primarily going to be focusing on the tarot portion of this reading, just kind of for whoever resonates with it. I have also incorporated a hexagram from the I Ching today, but before we get into the tarot portion of the reading, I'm just going to read briefly from the oracle for this hexagram and then wait until the end of the reading to get into the line-by-line delineations and more information and specifics about the hexagram. And maybe by then we can make some interesting little connections with the tarot portion of the reading. But for today, we have got hexagram number 52, which is composed of mountain trigram doubled. So mountain over mountain. And mountain is associated with the earth element, naturally, and is obviously composed of the two yin lines topped by the yang line. So it's kind of like an ascending power of the earth element, the consolidating stillness. Is kind of how I conceptualize it anyway. We're going to briefly read over just the little oracle paragraphs associated with hexagram 52, which is called Yin, Listen to the Wind. So the oracle says, quiet your heart and be calm. Remember that even stillness can be a form of movement. The sage contemplates the situation in stillness. It is natural for the heart to fluctuate and a mind to flutter, but exercise restraint. Listen to the wind. That is how you will hear the answer to your inquiry. The wind will carry an important omen to you. Silence is the way to self-mastery. You show your strength to others when you sit tall like a mountain, walk with the formidable presence of a mountain, all the while calm and serene. Think before you speak. Silence is the way to prevailing in your endeavor. Present inaction paves the way for future gains. So nice little message there. I think, judging by the state of things on social media right now, it's just kind of like, yeah, I think that's good medicine right there, is to kind of sit back and think about things before you start engaging with stuff, because it's not the time for it. Okay, anyway, tarot portion of the reading. I've already shuffled some cards up and I've already laid them out. I apologize for any shakiness. Y'all are sitting on my table for this reading today. And I have kind of a modified spread just for my own purposes that I'm kind of experimenting with, so we'll see how it goes. So for our first card, we have the Hierophant. This is Taurus's card. Second card, we have the Emperor, so we have Aries. Third card, Prince of Wands, fire signs. Next card, we have the Ace of Wands. Then we have the Six of Swords. Ace of Wands is the 0-degree point of Aries, cardinal spring, or vernal equinox, I should say, rather. Six of Swords, which is the middle decan of Aquarius. Then we have the 10 of Discs. This is the last decan of Virgo. 10 of Wands, last decan of Sagittarius. And the Devil, Capricorn. So today's reading is very much dominated by earth and fire. A little bit of air there, but it's an interesting spot. We'll get into that in just a moment. But we'll start off with the Hierophant card, because this is in the position of the spread that I have designated for the head, or for kind of our inner mindset, our inner approach, our perspective on how things are going in our lives. Obviously, this isn't going to resonate with everyone, so take everything with a grain of salt, and we'll see where things go. But the Hierophant is very much associated with things of an orthodox or traditional nature. You know, these are the paths that are already laid before you by your predecessors, paths that are well established and kind of vouch for themselves as methods towards approaching something, whether that's an avenue towards some perceived notion of success or perceived notion of spiritual attainment or enlightenment. Whatever the case may be, it's very much representative of the traditions, the rituals, the expectations, the historical precedents even associated with certain paths in life. And you can see that in any field, whether it's business related or religious, political, it doesn't really matter what shape it takes. It's more in line with, let's see how to put this. So the high priestess is kind of associated with the idea of the church. Not necessarily the church itself, but rather that which the church is built around. And the church is the Hierophant. These are the teachings, the expositions, the catechisms that are kind of enshrining the truth that the high priestess represents. The high priestess is that which is beyond words to convey, but which we use words to attempt to convey. Hopefully that makes sense. So the Hierophant kind of maybe communicates that we're in a space of trying to align with values of tradition, and it's given that it's a Taurus card, it's very much something that we use to try to provide a sense of stability and security for ourselves. So maybe that's something that we're kind of placing importance on right now, is trying to find kind of a sense of stability and security. I'm feeling compelled to talk about the hexagram briefly because it does connect with this. The mountain trigram is associated with the northeast direction on the Bagua. And if we think about this as a zodiacal wheel, the ecliptic, the northeastern quadrant is associated with Taurus because you have east being Aries, and just above Aries, if we're kind of orienting the ecliptic, like I'm looking south right now, so if we were to orient it so that Aries was in the west, just for sake of visual representation, you'd have Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and then Cancer right at the top, at the highest point. And Taurus is, fixed Earth. It's the fixed Earth column, the stable, unmoving point of Earth, which is very much what this hexagram sort of communicates. It's also associated with the 12th and the 1st lunar months of the Chinese lunisolar calendar, but those months aren't necessarily associated with Taurus. I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's still that northeastern quadrant of stabilizing manifestation of constructing and I'm hearing padding, like some sort of matrix or space that we're trying to place ourselves into that provides some semblance of security. And I think a lot of that maybe has to do with an overwhelming sense of instability and insecurity globally right now on many fronts, especially economically. I feel like a lot of us are definitely feeling the economic transformation that's taking place right now, and it's birthing pains aren't pleasant. So in the process of us moving into a totally new paradigm on every level, there's going to be a lot of strife along the way as we work out the kinks and the issues with certain systems, and even get rid of former systems of doing things. So the Hierophant is very much compelling us to look over these themes, to really come to terms with the traditional or orthodox path, the established paradigm, and really try to gather what it is that this construct is built around. What are the fundamental parts that we can't give up and that are enshrined with this sacred importance for a very particular reason. I feel like in the revolutionary mindset, there's this tendency to want to throw everything out and start completely new. And I don't think that's the correct way to move forward. Our traditions and our paths and our cultures place importance upon certain things for very specific reasons. And without, whatever truths or whatever established methods of doing things are there in those spaces, are things that we need to carry with us into the future, into this notion of progress, however that's conveyed. And this is very much a theme with a lot of the readings that I've been doing, both personally and here publicly, is this idea of trying to gather the fruits of what has already been in the past and, kind of alchemize and turn it into something that's workable for the future. And, even introduce new ingredients, new fruits, because things are constantly evolving and transforming and taking different shapes, and even new ideas being inserted all the time. So this idea of the Hierophant, of the orthodox path, is subject to change. Despite this idea of the church being this unchanging, eternal thing, there's nothing unchanging and eternal in this world. Our souls may be absolutely fundamentally unchanging and untouchable by anything, but the world that we inhabit in embodied existence is subject to constant change, constant transformation. There is no such thing as absolute stillness within the manifest world. And so this notion of being this fixed, unchanging pillar and this eternal church, so to speak, is something that needs to adapt to this notion and to embody this flexibility and this idea that our ideas of what the truth is, our ideas of what's important, are constantly shifting and transforming, and we need to be flexible with that, and we need to not allow our preconceptions and our beliefs about what the established path is to cloud our judgment and not make us want to throw everything out for sake of progress. There's I feel like there's more to say, but I want to move to the next card because I'm getting real carried away with this Hierophant here. I just feel like he has a lot to say. At the heart of the reading, we have the Emperor. And this is Aries. This is drive. This is passion. This is self-assuredness. This is sovereignty of the individual spirit. And once in that state, it's sort of like the embodiment of the solar archetype and manifesting truth through our actions and through our words and sort of implementing them. I think it's interesting because right next to him, to the Emperor's right, we have the Ace of Wands, and obviously he's carrying this scepter here, and I feel like this is kind of a representation of that. He's looking over to that right hand, that Ace of Wands, that 0-degree point of Aries. And it's like, this is a time of tremendous initiation. There's a lot of astronomical movements that are taking place right now, kind of concurrent with a lot of tremendous shifts that we're having collectively as a human society, and even into our little fragmented cultural national little groups, whatever. There's a lot of transformation taking place, and I feel like we are kind of drawing from that Hierophant mentality of like trying to find pieces of the truth in the already established long enduring paths towards truth, towards what's the phrase that wants to come through? It's like something about protecting that which endures, establishing a construction around that which endures. And so what is it in this world of constant change that's actually endurant, that actually endures and remains true throughout the ages? I feel like that's kind of what's being called to the surface, called to our attention right now. And this Emperor is like, now that I've tapped into that space, I'm going to hold on to that and use that as kind of like my Polaris, my North Star, my guiding. I'm seeing like not necessarily a puppet, but like somebody with like a string coming out of the crown of their head, and it's like the Hierophant is holding this string so that the Emperor's posture can be upright and held steady, even in spite of fluctuations in the world around, and no matter how his arms and legs move, his head remains straight and fixed towards this point, towards this goal, towards this ideal, even. And so by wielding the passion and the power, the explosion of initiation, the explosive ingress that is the Aries essence, by wielding that, we're able to sort of compel ourselves into progress, compel ourselves into creating something that more fully embodies the total picture of things, the total picture of the human tapestry as we individually and collectively see it. And it's like, in order to do so, I think it's interesting that to the Emperor's left side, we have the Six of Swords. This is the science card. This is the middle decan of Aquarius. Middle decan of Aquarius, that's fixed air. It's one of the 4 fixed pillars, just like Taurus. And it's more in the sense of like innovation, of gathering information and organizing it in such a way that it's made practical and useful, because information for information's sake, which is Mercury's forte right here, and obviously Mercury rules this middle decan of Aquarius, which I think is also interesting, adds a layer of deeper interpretation there. Information for its own sake can just be like a mess of chaos. There's too many numbers, there's too many words, there's so many different opinions about things, so many different potential outcomes based on data, and it's like Aquarius sits down here in this decan and says, we're going to take all this information, gather it together, and we're going to make it into something that's useful, something that has organization, cohesion, has a thread of stability through it, because it is still Saturn's sign, Aquarius. So it's like Saturn's domicile with Mercury's decan right there. And so it's this kind of harmonization of the Saturnian and the Mercurial essences, this scientific approach to information, of trying to make sure that things withstand repeated attempts to investigate or inquire about a specific string of methodologies or specific approaches. I feel like I'm using words that are complicating what should be a simple concept. I really hope that you're following what I'm saying here. But it's like, when you come to a conclusion about reality, you want to be able to back up that conclusion with evidence. And so that's this process here with this Six of Swords, is like making sure that this thesis, this statement of how reality is, or how reality can or should operate, is backed up by evidence, is backed up by peer-reviewed studies, that have sort of outlined their approaches, their methods, their resources, and how those resources have been used, so that the process that yielded a specific outcome can be repeated with the same outcome. And it's sort of like, this is what the Hierophant is kind of also standing in for, with that Taurus, orthodox approach, these paths that are already established and long withstanding through the passage of time. It's like, these are the methods that can be repeated in order to reach the same conclusions, the same state of enlightenment, and for the sake of religion in that instance. and that these paths can be followed and repeated to yield the same effects for any individual that chooses to go that specific way. And it's kind of like this is the alchemy that's taking place right now, is drawing from those spaces in order to produce something that really fully embodies this Ace of Wands principle of creating something new, of I'm hearing reinvigorating the system. And what I'm seeing as I'm saying that is like somebody with a staff, and they're like hitting it into the ground, and there's this current of energy that's sort of like lightning forked and moving out in every single direction, and it's charging the ground beneath. And from the space that's being charged, it's like I see the earth like lifting up, and like maybe there's like plants sort of like bursting into life in that area, but I don't really feel like that's the most important part. It's like the earth itself is what's being lifted. These very deep fundamental facets of reality are being transformed and recharged and brought back to life, brought back to the surface. It's like whatever this person was that's sort of stamping his staff into the ground and charging the system, it's like it was a sunken area, this kind of barren wasteland that just sort of like fell deeper and sunk down. And it's like as soon as his staff hits it, it's like this depression in the earth like raises back up and is made, I'm hearing made whole again, but I don't, it's like it's reharmonizing, resynchronizing with the entire earth sphere, or maybe even rising above it, because we have the mountain, the double mountain hexagram here. This idea of the earth sort of rising up, lifting up, and becoming a fixed column. Very interesting theme. I like this. At the foot of the reading, we have the Prince of Wands. And this is like very dynamic action. This is like a flurry. I'm seeing like, I don't even know how to articulate this image. I just see somebody that's like so busy and is like running around to complete tasks in a space. Maybe this is sort of like representative of a state of restlessness, because at the foot of the reading you have the Prince of Wands. That's sort of like, I see like shoes on fire. Like this is somebody that's like dynamic. It's trying to, stay busy, is constantly moving, is constantly doing something. The fire signs like to do things. They don't like to sit around and contemplate necessarily. They like to enshrine the contemplations into the church of action. That's the fire sign approach. Speaking as a fire sign, I can relate with this. And so maybe this Prince of Wands at the foot of the reading is really communicating a collective restlessness that's spurring us into action, spurring us into really taking a deliberate and immediate approach to how our reality is taking shape and taking form. And I think it's important, especially with the Emperor at the heart of the reading, it's really important to make sure that we're not being busybodies, that we're actually ensuring that the actions, that the restlessness is really channeled into something that's productive and obviously maybe somehow aligns with the orthodox path in a way, because we do have the Hierophant at the crown. Not necessarily in the sense that you have to, integrate yourself into like a church or into like a corporate model of doing things. But more in the sense that you recognize the value in some of those approaches. You recognize how those already tried and true methods can actually sort of nourish and sustain and reinforce your approach to things. And there's a wasp right outside my window as I'm saying that. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe just more of a Martian, Mars, Emperor, Aries thing. I'm hearing something. I'm trying to tune in. It's like acting with integrity, acting with virtue. I'm thinking back to, I think maybe it was the last reading that I did where the virtue card came through. I think it was trying to remember which card that is. I want to say it's not the Eight of Wands. It's in the Suit of Wands. Might be the fourth. I'll have to look through the Thoth deck and see. But it's in the Suit of Wands. It's called Virtue. And it's connecting to something that I said. I can't remember word for word what I said when that card came through, or like there was like a string of messages that kind of came out at different times relevant to that card in that last reading that I did. But it's very much like this idea of acting in alignment with truth, not being combative for the sake of conflict or for the sake of upholding some perceived notion of what virtue is, but rather aligning yourself with what is actually virtuous. And that opens like up a whole philosophical can of worms that I'm not going to get into here. I don't think it's important. I think there's relevance to the fact that we've already sort of established a almost universal code of morality and conduct, proper conduct, and I think it's kind of in our nature these days to, even I have the tendency to be like, whatever that means when I say something is good or evil or, proper conduct, there's value in acknowledging and even operating under the paradigm of a moral code. This is so weird. I'm hearing like, just make sure it's the right the right one, because I feel like a lot of things are very diffuse right now. The stability, the fixed columns have been very much and are being very much stirred up astrologically, and it's something that we can kind of perceive, especially over the course of the last several years. It's just been like all of the fundamental facets of our society are being called under scrutiny, or being put under inquiry, investigation, and it's like we're tearing everything apart brick by brick so we can understand how it worked and why it's working and how we can make it work better. It's like this collective tearing something apart to bring it back together again. There's like a term for that. I guess just like tinkering with things, taking like a mechanic approach, and taking the engine apart piece by piece so that you can understand it, and just making sure that you know how to put everything back together again. And maybe you can integrate some new pieces or some new wires here and there to facilitate the use of augmentations or additional accessories. I'm thinking about cars as I'm saying this. But yeah, okay. So we have the 10 of coins in the position of the environment around us. This is the space around us. I feel like the 10 of coins represents having the resources available to us. We're very privileged in our modern age to have access to the things that we do, with the system of trade that operates worldwide, the system of communications that we have, like the fact that I'm able to talk to somebody on the complete other side of the world, anywhere in the world, with this tool of the internet, is very much kind of representative of the privileges that we have in this age that we haven't had in recorded history. And I'm saying recorded history because there's a huge chunk of the human timeline that we are completely unaware of. And so I think it's almost it's unfair to say that we are the most advanced that we've ever been. I don't believe that at all. But anyway, we won't get into that. This 10 of coins is kind of like the acknowledgement, or rather the reminder to acknowledge the privilege that we have, the opportunities that we have, and to really make the most of that, because I feel like up until recently, especially with the beginning portions of the internet, we've slowly kind of descended into not even just the internet, like television and music and just entertainment culture on a whole. We've kind of sort of slowly degraded and descended into a very sedentary, complacent sort of lifestyle. And obviously that's not true for everyone everywhere in the world. You know, there's been a lot of people that are still very much in the former paradigms of really struggling and striving for every little thing that they have in their lives. But there's just so much more opportunity to not have to be in that state now, more so than there was ever before. And that's not to say that everyone is going to have an easy time of it. You know, those of us who are kind of born into a system that's, you know, stable and provides nourishment, you know, by virtue of being born in a like a first world country, whatever, as opposed to somebody who was born in like a third world country and really had to work hard to get to where they are. You know, it's not to say that one person in either of these situations is better than the other. It's just there's different struggles, different approaches, different different realities entirely. So it's like if we have the opportunity, if we have the resources, if you're here watching this right now, odds are that you have something of use. You have something that is, you know, you've been blessed with this opportunity to be able to use the internet and to engage with the wider world of ideas, and also even have access to actual like practical opportunities that, you know, yield tangible assets and resources to you, whether that's in the form of money or in the form of like food and, you know, shelter and, you know, clothing, whatever it is. You know, acknowledge the blessings that you have and make the most of where you are, is what this 10 of Coins card is really telling me here. For our outside influences, we have this 10 of Wands, this oppression card, last decan of Sagittarius. It's sort of like, I feel like there's a couple different forks that I could follow with this particular card. Since we have the Devil right above it, to me, what it's representing is this sort of burning away, this purification process, this, I'm hearing, because especially it's right next to that Six of Swords right here, that Science card, that Mercury ruled middle decan of Aquarius. And it's like this process of burning away hyper complexity. Like I'm seeing like we have made what should be so totally simple into something that's so convoluted, and you know, it's just this chaos, this string of numbers and useless words and information that hasn't been sort of brought together with any form of cohesion. And so I think it's interesting that's kind of been a loose running theme through this reading here, and it's very much being emphasized again here, because kind of like what I had said earlier about like how I, in my own approach to trying to articulate what I was connecting with the tarot, it was like I was making something that was so simple so much more complicated that it needed to be, just based on the words that I was choosing. And that's something that I do a lot. But this idea of burning that away, of burning the complexity away, of stripping it down to its bare reality, which is Capricorn, which is the devil, you know, the devil, because God forbid we acknowledge what reality actually is, you know. It's so evil, it's so harsh, you know, it's so Saturn, and Saturn is like the most vilified planet right now. I think it's interesting too, especially we have this phallic imagery. It's like this, we're animals, we are embodied beings, and we have sort of compartmentalized aspects of our bodies, aspects of our cultures, aspects of our realms of thought, aspects of our spiritualities to these sort of red-taped taboo spaces that evoke shame, that evoke hatred and division and conflict. For what? You know, and I feel like this 10 of Wands, this oppression, is like adverse situations really compel you and sometimes force you to come face to face with the true reality of a given situation, with the true nature of reality as it's manifesting in your life, and maybe in a collective way as well. You know, and what I see when I look at this card, this ten of Wands, is actually like a pyre, like a pile of wood that's been set aflame. And obviously the pyre is usually associated with like funeral rites, and rightly so. I feel like what's been placed on the pyre is like all of those useless bits of information, those useless I shouldn't say useless, maybe that's not the right word. Everything that we've made more complicated than it needs to be, everything that we've embellished unnecessarily, that we've villainized or vilified rather, for whatever reason. It's like everything that we've deemed useless and evil is like put on the funeral pyre, and it's like burned away, and all that's left is like the bones. And it's like the bones is the useful truth, the truth that we can that the conclusions that we can come to through repeatable methods. That Hierophant and this Six of Swords card here with the repeatable conclusions, this scientific methodology, this need to follow an established, tried and true path towards a specific goal, towards a specific end. And with Capricorn, I'm feeling compelled. These are like deep, fundamental tenets of not only our individual lives, but like our societal realities. That's why Capricorn is a lot of the times associated with the empire, with our governments, with the matrix. That's the matrix being sort of like a conglomerate of the economic, trade-based systems, communication systems, ideological exchanging networks and systems that all sort of make up a collectivist society. And I don't, collectivist isn't the right word. Just a larger body of human individuals. And whether that's sort of compartmentalized into the idea of like a nation or a state or whatever. It's like these are the fundamental backdrops of our reality. This is the bedrock of the lives that we build. And so when the devil's coming out like this, and I'm looking over at the Hierophant as I'm saying that, it's like everything that takes place, especially now, has been in the process of stripping away the skin, the makeup, the clothing, to leave us with the skeleton, to leave us with the truest, most practical, because I'm thinking of it in like terms of wood. It's like the that which the structure is built around, that which supports the entire structure. Both in terms of like a physical construct, like a house with the wooden beams and everything, or like bones for like the the living body. It's interesting that this is kind of like a collective process that we're going through. It's like all these outer experiences and manifestations and events that take place are only propelling us closer and closer to this ultimate realization, to this bedrock realization. And this idea that keeps coming up in the readings of like connecting with that very southerly point that is associated with the Capricorn southern solstice, the winter solstice for the northern hemisphere. It's like you get to the bottom and the only place to go from there is up. Like you hit the bottom and then you start to go back up again. The sun turns, changes direction, so to speak, and begins to ascend in the sky again. And I feel like collectively as a society, that's what we're doing, is we're heading down to the bottom, and it's like all the layers. I'm seeing I'm seeing like that last scene in Harry Potter when Voldemort is sort of like peeling away into little bits of ash and skin that are just kind of floating away. It's like that's what we're collectively going through, is like this process of purification, of stripping away, of releasing and peeling off all the old layers, and coming to the naked truth of things. You know, that naked truth, the phallus. Oh no, we have naked bodies. Not allowed to acknowledge that, not allowed to look at that, because we like to, you know, cushify everything. We make everything cushiony and beautiful and embellished and complicated when it's really not. So here we are. Okay, so that's the tarot portion of this reading. I'm going to get a little bit more into this hexagram just for further clarification. So this is 52. Where did we go? That's 53. Okay, so I'm going to read the oracle, a little bit more of the oracle, and then I'm going to read the 3 changing lines for this hexagram, which today we have 3, 5, and 6. If you're curious and you want a little bit more, I don't know, clarification on this reading and potentially where it's leading, you can look towards the transformed hexagram. This would turn into earth because this changing yang line would become a yin line. And this would change into water because this changing yin line here in the middle of the top trigram would turn into a yang line, and the top line would turn into a yin line. So 2 yin lines with a yang line in the middle become water. So it'd be water over earth. And I'll look at which number that is just so you can look it up pretty easily. So upper trigram, we have water and earth. That would be hexagram 8, which Benabel Wen calls alliance. Okay, but I'm just going to focus on this one for now. So, be still like a mountain. The sage moves without moving. The sage advances and evolves, is changing by standing still. Lying on the back, the body cannot move. Wandering into the courtyard, there is no movement. No irreparable harm comes, there is no blame. Matters have come to a standstill, no movement or action. That's because you're in movement and trying to take action. It is natural for the heart to fluctuate and a mind to flutter from thought to thought, especially in the aftermath of adversity, but exercise restraint and keep still. And I feel like that's interesting because it's sort of the antithetical message towards what I was conveying with this Prince of Wands being at the foot, literally the feet of this reading. You know, that fire burning under the foot, compelling action, compelling movement, and it's almost like erratic, like can't sit still, needs to be busy all the time. So maybe this hexagram is kind of telling us that we need to slow that approach down. You will hear the answer to your inquiry by listening to the wind. Be still with your back straight in repose. When you are lost, do not wander. Remain still and a path will be cleared. In rest, there is movement. Hexagrams 51 and 52 are related. After the quake of hexagram 51, thunder over thunder, chi changes into its inverse. Hexagram 52, mountain over mountain. Hexagram 51 looks like this. Thunder over thunder. Flip 51 upside down and you get 52 and vice versa. Hexagram 52 expresses the sentiment of seeking return to normalcy after a shock of circumstances, which I'm not sure which character ideogram this is. Can evoke pregnancy or rise in social status. The preceding Chinese character is a neutral pronoun, which could mean his, her, its, their, that, or one. Thus, this string of characters is the prognostication that there will be no harvest, no manifestation, or receiving of one's... I'm not sure what that is. Be that a figurative reference to pregnancy or social status, or to a certain corpus, a person's body, or body of work. Finally, listening, as used in this context, is not about hearing, but about paying close attention and being attentive. Let's see. The Qilin is a mythical beast that appears to portend a significant transformative event relating to a sage or leader. In the I Ching, hexagrams 2, 15, 23, and 52 are likened to the omen of seeing a Qilin appear. These hexagrams are omens of a significant transformative event to come, one relating to the near future rise of a sage or leader. Here, divining hexagram 52 can portend a great awakening or epiphany, but one that is contingent upon the seeker heeding the counsel of hexagram 52's lines. I guess we'll go through line by line, starting with the first line, but pay special attention to the third, the fifth, and the sixth lines, okay? Just make sure this isn't... Okay, first line. The feet at rest, calm and tranquil. The feet at rest, calm and tranquil. Not this at all. Harm comes. No harm comes, sorry. Gains to come in steadfast passage forward. The feet are symbolic of initial movement. Keeping the feet at rest is the oracle's counsel to be patient and not engage. This is the omen of undertaking a journey without taking a single step. In the matter at hand, stay steady without the intention of advancing. Instead of indulging ambition or desiring progress, seek to maintain the status quo. The paradox of intention and result will be that by intending to maintain the status quo, you shall advance and attain what you seek. It is not yet time for you to engage. Rather than saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, here, the first line is telling you that your journey of 1,000 miles begins with quiet contemplation of the journey. Second line, the calves at rest, calm and tranquil. No relief to their followers. The heart is not content. What's in the heart is not truthfully spoken. The secrecy and concealment are burdening. When you can't save yourself, how can you save those who depend on you? Calf muscles support you when you stand. They are what enable movement. Fei, while an anatomical reference to the calves, is also a reference to being ill or in a state of declining. So here, there is a halt to illness, and a state of decline has been put to a stop. I think it's interesting that language, because it's kind of connecting back with what I was saying of like hitting the bottom, that Capricorn solstice point, and then only being able to move down, or move up rather, because once you hit the bottom, it's like this flat, like stable place, the root. You can't go any lower than that, and then you just have to go up from there. Interesting language here. While one's own state of decline has come to a stop, unfortunately, the predicament of those in a lesser position and those who look to you as a leader is growing dire. The circumstances are such that you do not have the ability to save them. Feeling powerless to save them, your heart is discontented. You cannot be happy when others are in such a state of suffering, with no salvation in sight. Zheng bears an undertone of salvation or being lifted up, raised. The second line implies the Cassandra metaphor, one who knows of an impending threat and tries to warn the people, but the people will not listen or don't believe the wise one. This is the unfulfilling position of knowing what will happen, desiring to prevent it, but not having the power of persuasion to keep it from happening. Third line, the midsection at rest, calm and tranquil. Wounded back, cauterize the aching heart. The image of the third line is of sundered flesh along the backside, where your waist and loins are. Adversity and difficult circumstances have also damaged the heart, bearing the implication of a sharp object having been thrust there. Xian is a reference to a boundary, a threshold, a liminal space forming a veil. Anatomically, this is the waist, loins, back, and spine, or midsection of the physical body. I almost said metaphysical body. The third line is a quiet struggle, expressing a tragedy so big yet so small that there are no words, no means of comfort to lessen the pain. If interpreting the lines through the lens of a mystic, then the third line reads like the critical transition point, shifting you from one realm or state of consciousness into the next. This is the entrance point. This is the entering of the courtyard by way of the astral body. So maybe the metaphysical body thing was not an accidental slip. Your emotions resent the instruction to keep still. You are feeling a disquiet and distress that provoke you to move, as if movement can help you escape your feelings. Prince of Wands again. Like I'm telling you, that's real interesting. You are feeling a disquiet and distress that provoke you to move, as if movement can help you escape your feelings. Yet the oracle is counseling you to hold still, calm and tranquil, perhaps the very words you do not want to hear right now. Fourth line, the torso at rest, calm and tranquil, no irreparable harm done. This is the image of one seated in meditation. Maintain repose to mitigate the harm. If you remain still, calamity will pass you by. The torso is a reference to our anatomical center and site of our organs. This is what holds us upright. Show restraint. Even when you are well within your rights to act, hold yourself back. Keep your composure. The fourth line is preemptive admonishment from the oracle to not judge other people. Like the image of one in sitting meditation, focus on yourself, judge yourself. Do not give unsolicited advice and do not concern yourself with whether another is contributing their part. Just make sure you contribute yours. As a narrative progression of astral journeying, the fourth is a moment of personal achievement. You've successfully arrived at your intended destination. Fifth line, the face at rest, calm and tranquil. Keep your words in their proper order. Disappointments vanish. Fu is a reference to the cheeks and the surrounding skin of the mouth. The fifth line is counsel to keep your mouth at rest. Okay. Show restraint with your words. In fact, perhaps not speaking at all would be wisest. Think before you speak, not the other way around. There are few things more difficult than keeping silent about matters that are significant to you. Silence is therefore the most difficult abstinence. Yet silence is the way to self-mastery. What's more, silence is the way to prevailing in your endeavor. Sixth line, desires and emotions at rest, attainment of great fortunes and the favor of the gods. At the sixth line, the epiphany is realized. Staying in a state of repose is the demonstration of a benevolent heart. When the one with a benevolent heart can stay at rest, great fortune and reward will come. Present inaction paves the way for future gains. This is an affirmation of one who has tamed one state of mind. Desires and emotions at rest yield fruition and success. I feel like I want to read this bit, but I'm trying to see how interesting it might be. Okay, we'll read this. This is the last little bit for hexagram 52. God of the underworld, Dongyue. Hexagram 52 invokes Emperor Dongyue. Dongyue Dadi. Please, never mind my pronunciation. God of the underworld, and is also an omen of his presence. Emperor Dongyue is the god of Mount Tai, the sovereign ruler of all mountain gods and Taoist god of the underworld. The trigram mountain is also associated with the deep caves in the mountainside that lead to the underworld. In antiquity, the souls of the dead returned to Mount Tai, so Emperor Dongyue was designated as a ruler of the underworld. Although he isn't one of the 8 immortals, he's the first of all humans to have become immortal. In Mahayana Buddhism, he is a Dharma protector, or a guardian of the law. If hexagram 52 becomes a recurring presence, the Taoist mystic might understand it as a call from the god of the underworld to appear before his court. Astrally journey to the underworld court of Dongyue, a journey that takes you on an ascent up a steep mountain to a cave, then into the cave and on a descent deep below the earth. The underworld is dark, cold, but dry. Pardon the sound of the plane. Dongyue can also be invoked in mediumship readings to send and retrieve souls of the dead between the realms. Perhaps hexagram 52 is an omen that the god of the underworld is calling to you, beckoning you to his court, for he has an important mission he'd like you to fulfill. And I feel like that also sort of connects to some of what I was saying in the previous reading to this one. Just based on the time of the year that we're in, where connecting with our ancestors, with those who have passed on, is sort of facilitated and sort of culturally emphasized. And even personally, like I've got pictures of passed on family members out in a common area in the house, and really lately been sort of like connecting with and dialoguing with their energies, because it feels very much like this is a time to really connect with any messages that they might have, both for me and maybe also for you. Just trying to communicate with your deceased family members, your guides, and those spirits which sort of offer support to you as you go through your life. Okay. And I'm trying to see if I feel like there's anything else that needs to be said today. I think we are where we are. So we'll leave it at that for now. I will be back soon with some more readings. I'm still, just because of time, for sake of time, I think the 12 zodiac sign readings are kind of out of the question, at least for now. I might reintegrate them into my channel again, a little further down the line as I try to figure out how to find the proper balance of things. But for now, just a video or two or more here and there every couple of weeks or every week or so. Definitely a few videos a month at least is kind of what's sustainable for me right now. And they are a little bit longer form, as you can see, obviously, so I apologize for those of you who don't have the time or the patience for that sort of thing. But this is, there's other readers out there. You don't have to come to my channel. I don't have any expectation with posting these readings. I feel a compulsion and I follow it and I say what comes up. So if it's relevant or helpful to y'all along the way, then that's great. That's, very encouraging, and I love hearing about that. But it's also, I feel like it's part of something that's larger than just me and my day-to-day compulsions to perform a reading, or readings rather, to come here and do this. And what that larger than me thing is, I'm not sure. I'm just sort of here. We're all playing our part. Maybe one sentence that I say somewhere along the road inspires something that somebody does, and it's like this person ends up being, a very important figurehead in where we're going collectively. But even if that doesn't happen, that's totally fine too. Might just be nice to hear somebody talking, because I know I appreciate going to readings on YouTube and just listening to what certain people have to say, because it can be very empowering. It can be very, what's the word? It can feel nice to feel like certain facets of your experience are being adequately represented by the words somebody's choosing, or by the cards that are coming up in a particular reading, or the hexagram, But yeah, these are interesting times. I am getting tired of hearing that phrase, but it's true. And, we're here. We're here. We are where we are. I think that's the key phrase for this reading today. But yeah, I'm wishing you all the best. Thanks for sticking it out if you made it this far. And you'll be seeing me. I'll be seeing you.